Willkommen in einem Fragens video. Welcome to another exciting video, in this case episode 40 of my Game System History and Theory series. In this video I'll investigate why people get into wargaming. What are the reasons why people start wargaming, specifically figure gaming, and how did they change as they pursue this wonderful hobby? I am uncertain where I had the idea of creating this video, but one day I wondered how and why do people get into wargaming, specifically figure gaming. Simple board games such as Scrabble, Monopoly are simple to learn and play, and which can allow people to interact with other people and kill some time. The effort is low to enter, so anyone can play these styles of games. However, figure gaming requires a massive investment in time and money to even start. Buying the figures, painting them up, and creating the playing area is not a trivial matter. So there must be some reason why people are willing to expend this amount of time and money for such a poor seeming payoff. As an example, I'm stocking up on figures to paint when I retire. I spent about £100 on pack animals, donkeys and tents. This is not uncommon for figure gamers, but non-figure gamers would consider this rather delusional behaviour. One major influence is entertainment, such as movies, TV shows, comics and books. This is probably the main source of the seed of this interest. Other factors are your parents, which may have served in the military or during a war, or perhaps other relatives such as grandparents. Whatever the cause, this is probably what creates the seed which could result in an interest in figure gaming blossoming. When I went looking for Commando covers for this video, I was surprised to see the cover title, Hero of the Reich, or Held des Reichs. I don't seem to remember anything like this when I was a child, so I expect this has been added for balance. My memories were always the British won, against massive odds, and a single British commander was more than a match for a Konigstigr. The next driver is often school, other students which may have an interest in the military or history. Once two like-minded people, even if they're not like-minded initially, start exchanging information about these topics, the interest can grow dramatically. Often this results in an interest in building models, tanks, ships, etc. I'm certain Airfix was a major influence in the development of a lot of figure gamers, especially 25mm World War II Napoleonics and to a lesser extent Ancients. With an interest and with figures, it's only logical some attempt is made to create a game. While I've mainly focused on military and history, this is not exclusive. Sci-fi is a major driver as well, especially spacecraft-based games. This has moved into Warhammer, which merges history with science fiction. The other main subject area is fantasy, with players perhaps thinking of fighting it out with fantasy characters, or even battles such as occurred as in the Lord of the Rings novels. I'll not focus on sci-fi or fantasy to any degree in this video, but most of this video would equally apply to these subject areas. I would argue these days they represent a stronger driver than history or an interest in the military. I would also argue these genres are a more powerful force encouraging the growth of figure gamings today. Many have suggested that these are the pool of potential historical figure gamers you should target. However, I'm not really certain if this is really correct. The first attempts at gaming will vary, but assuming an interest in models and gaming, it's often the use of models which were built and a homegrown set of rules which are created that is the first attempt at gaming. This was certainly the case in the olden days. These days, a player may see one of the package systems which provide figures and rules. At this point, most gaming is very superficial and players split into gamers and historians, with gamers liking the bling and challenge of gaming in the same manner as a chess player, and historians becoming interested in the history behind the game. In summary, this can influence what period of figure gaming is selected. The gamers will stay with the package solution, which include Warhammer, while historians will often split out into the roll-your-own figure gaming, such as Napoleonics and Ancients. Eventually, everything tends to merge, with historical gamers often playing package solutions and gamers moving into the roll-your-own periods, but this can take time. At some point in the development or developing gamer, they will drop into a convention, which can explode the range of options available. Often a nice looking game will influence a gamer to get into that period, or a set of rules. Rules may even be purchased, and the interest will continue to grow. Now we come to the critical factor, a range of opponents. While it's possible a player will have his or her buddies to game against, eventually people drop out and interests diverge. It's time to find a club or other opponents. With board gaming, it's possible to find opponents via the internet, but for figure gaming, a club is often critical. The main reason is the room required and the facilities required. In the US, I know gamers who have barns with enormous playing areas, but in Europe, this is less common. The country the gamer lives in can cause gamers to diverge in the way they develop. In the US, small groups of players who meet at each home is very common, with the conventions offering the variety lacking in this situation and allowing players to meet new players and get new ideas. In the UK, the club scene is critical, as this is the only location playing areas can normally be set up. As in the US, conventions will often allow players the opportunity to meet new players. Often the conventions are held in the clubs and are comparatively small affairs. They often focus on a specific period or set of rules. This also has an impact on the type of rules a new gamer will adopt. If playing games at a friend's house, where the game can be set up for days if not weeks, this encourages big games and rules which support big games. When gaming in a club, a game needs to be able to be played within a 6 to 8 hour period, if not less. This restricts the forces per side, and the playing area size and the type of rules being used can vary as a result. The other variability is the period a gamer gets into. In most cases, is influenced by potential players or opponents. So in my case, my first true figure gaming was American Civil War, a period I knew little about and had little interest in, but my opponent was interested in it. I used Airfix Confederate figures, which I later used to represent Austro-Hungarian figures when my interest moved to Europe. As an Austrian by heritage, this is expected, but my opponent's Union army could fill in for the evil Prussians, or in some case the even eviler French. The other factor is non-figure gaming, such as board gaming. While at a very simple basis, I used Airfix World War II tanks and infantry to play against my cousin, who had an intense interest in the military because he was in the cadets at school himself. However, the rules were little more than spinning a coin, so I do not count them as pure figure gaming. This type of gaming was closer to a board gaming. From that point on, I moved into cardboard-based board gaming, which proved easier for games. Many people don't really like board games, as board gaming seems akin to studying history. Thus, they skip this stage, but I have found this rather common. My first board game on the Russian front was as much an exercise in learning about history as it was about having a game. If a player has minimal interest in history, they will often skip board gaming. If they do have an interest in history, then they will most certainly go down the board gaming path. For those who have minimal interest in learning the history, they tend to be more interested in the game and associated bling. This may change over time and an interest in history may develop, but a history in history is not the driver for these people. The result could be an interest in sci-fi and fantasy games. Back in the old days, there was very little bling, but these days Warhammer and fantasy can satisfy the bling itch, so sci-fi and fantasy is certainly a viable path. We can summarise as follows. On the left are those events or things which may stimulate an interest in wargaming. I'm assuming everyone understands gaming. I'm only focusing on the wargaming aspect of gaming. On the right is the step someone with an interest may pursue. They may buy models, socialise with friends, visit a club, visit a convention, buy a rules book with pictures. This gives our potential gamer all the basic information and items to try an actual game. While the exact order may vary, at some point in time a homegrown game is attempted, followed by one using rules, and then wargaming figures are purchased to use with these rules. The set of rules has a major impact on this progress. It's assumed that at this point there is an interest and the bling of the figure is attractive. but the rules can also have a major impact on how quickly someone gets in the hobby. If there is someone at a club to teach a new player, the impact of the rules is reduced, but can still influence the gamer. If the rules are unattractive and hard to learn, we can have major issues. Rules design is outside the scope of this video, and I've dedicated dozens of earlier videos on this topic, but the rules quality and the game system ecosystem is also important in how a gamer develops. Flames of War does an excellent job for new players. Lots of pictures, big fonts, and excellent supporting infrastructure. For experienced players, the Flames of War rulebooks is lacking as a reference document. But as the game system is so simple, that may not be really a major issue. We at this point should have a figure gaming wargamer. As anyone in the hobby will know, most gamers move to other periods, rules or scales, as they attempt to find a sweet spot they are most happy with. This heavily is influenced by opponents' availability. It's no good being interested in 54mm ancient Hittites if there is no one else available as an opponent with a 54mm Egyptian army. Once within the hobby, some gamers are deep in their heart, a modeller. They like making models or painting up figures and terrain and simply want a chance to show them off and use them. I remember years ago collecting Airfix 1/700 scale naval models, but always wanted to try and see if I could get a game using them. I tried and failed, and all my models are long gone. 1/72 scale aircraft is another example. Many boys would make up a model of a fighter aircraft, and later, when a gamer may try and use them in a game. There are rules available, but generally they tend not to be that popular. Smaller scales are more common for aircraft or naval figure gaming. Other types of gamers are the gamer who wants a mental challenge. These type of players could be just as happy having a game of chess or a board game as a figure game. I probably was initially a gamer, which may be why I moved into board gaming and played over a dozen board gaming competitions. I generally fitted into this category initially. These type of players are not so interested in the modelling aspect of figure gamer, but do put a lot of effort into the game system and game aids to speed up play. Another class of gamer is the historian, who learns and plays game in an attempt to understand history. They tend to gravitate towards board gaming and solitaire gaming. While solitaire gaming is an important part of the hobby, it's not what I wish to focus on and will only mention it in passing. We may also come across the designer, people more interested in designing rules than actually playing a game. These gamers also tend towards solitaire gaming and often don't bother actually playing anyone else's rules. Once again, this is an important part of the hobby, but it's not one I wish to explore in any great detail. A large number of gamers, possibly most, can be classed as social players. They want an excuse to meet up with their comrades and push some lead around, in many cases also drinking copious amounts of beer. While they often do not play very well, perhaps due to alcohol, they are an important part of the hobby and a very important gamer. They love playing games, and if they slow down their drinking, can often be very good gamers. Most gamers are a mix of all these basic characteristics, and as time progresses may move from one type to another. As gamers become older and presumably wiser, they begin to consider other factors to gaming which previously were lower in priority and generally related to quality rather than quantity. What they're looking for in a game or a game system so they can improve their gaming experience tends to be a major focus. I have noticed most gamers, irrespective if they're a modeler, gamer, historian or social gamer, tend to increase their focus on a single aspect of gaming. The exception could be the designer, but often the designer is less interested in gaming than designing rules, so that's probably expected. Another driver is the feel and attractiveness of the playing area and figures. The best word to describe this is bling. Gamers want more bling. They want the playing area and figures to have a wow factor. This even applies to board gamers who want more colour, nicer maps and more colourful pieces. The figure gamer takes this to the next level, and one aspect of a game which changes the most is the playing area. Napoleonic players in particular place a major focus on the figures in the playing area. There is a real effort to get the feel of what a battlefield was like, and while this picture is of a skirmish game, the same applies to many other types of games and scales. The same also applies to World War II, Cold War gaming and modern gaming. In World War II and Cold War, the playing area represents the bulk of your bling, as typically you will not see many figures on even a large playing area. Ancients seem to be the exception. While there is a focus on painting up the figures, most ancient figure gamers do not utilise highly realistic playing areas. This could be due to the focus on competition games with very competition-oriented terrain deployment. This encourages very standard terrain pieces and featureless playing areas. I'm uncertain why this is the case, because with only a minimal effort you could put much more effort into the playing area and really get a good effect. But I must admit, even I play on pretty featureless playing areas, as you can see here when I engage in ancient gaming. I must also admit, in other periods, rules such as bitchute also encourages this featureless playing area. There are many benefits of featureless playing areas. They are quick to set up and pack away and can easily be used for modular train pieces or with modular train pieces. Now, I suspect the main reason is the gamers are not attempting to refight a historical battle and as such gravitate towards a chess-like structure. There's nothing wrong with this and the pure gamer would approve, but as I get older I desire more bling in my otherwise featureless gaming life. While the move towards bling is powerful, there are other trends which gamers move towards, which could explain the use of playing areas. Desire to have a game which can be completed in 2 to 3 hours, which includes setup and pack-up time. The other driver which could exist is this trend towards simple and simple-to-play rules. There's always been simple rules, but in the past they tended to be homegrown. I'm talking about now professionally printed and complete simple rules. While a reasonably complex set of rules such as DBMM can be highly successful, if that is the primary set of rules a gamer is using, gamers who wish to try new things occasionally gravitate towards simple rules. This requires or drives new rules to be simple. No one who plays Flames of War is going to have a relaxing, quick game of DBMM if they're not already an expert. Even if their opponents are teaching them, they quickly or very quickly, they simply let their opponents decide what they should do. Complex rules tend to really tire you out. It's one reason why I'm gravitating towards figure game conversions of old SPI board games for quick and friendly games. A typical game takes about 3 hours to set up, pack up and get a result, and in most cases I tend to lose. In this case, for more complex set of rules such as DBMM or in the modern area called Commander, the focus is on keeping the force mix as small as possible, all with the objective of ensuring you can have a full game in a half-day period. The other interesting trend is decreasing the size of the playing area so you can remain seated for the entire game. I noticed this with DBMM and DBM, where most gamers were gravitating towards a maximum 3x4 foot playing area. This always existed with DBA with their 2x2 foot playing area, or even GHQ squad scale set of rules with a similar sized playing area, but these were considered as unusual. Today even core gaming was reducing the size of the playing area. For monster games, which is a strong part of the hobby, the playing area depth tends to be no more than 3 feet, allowing players to be seated facing each other as they look after their sector of the playing area. This game was 4 players against 4 players. Each player looked after a 3-foot front line. I expect this reduction of playing area width is due to aging, although it's also common among younger players as well, so I feel there are many other factors I don't fully understand involved in this move towards smaller playing areas. Now we come to the rules, which is a topic so vast as to be impossible to cover in any form of detailed manner. As a result, I'll only cover this topic at a very surface level. Gamers today expect a reasonably professional set of rules, which is both complete and reasonably well tested and free of errors. This does not mean the rules need to be multicoloured, multimedia events. In many ways, that format has more problems than advantages. DBMM, while basic black and white, is a professionally produced set of rules. You can complain about aspects of the rules format, cross-referencing a lack of examples, but this applies to the more colourful rules such as Flames of War as well. The basic rules are complete, free of errors and professional. The same applies to Flame of Wars, although these rules go down the bling path. This is expected as these rules are attracting new younger players or gamers who respond to the bling a lot more. Remember my path to wargaming a black belt. Part of this could include purchasing a set of rules with lots of nice, sexy pictures. The second factor is learning curve. DBMM has a very steep learning curve, while Flames of War is a shallower learning curve. The learning curve can be mitigated by having an instructor teach you the rules. However, this assumes you have an instructor. There are many ways of reducing a steep learning curve. Examples in a PDF is one, videos is another. Flames of War embeds a lot of examples, which makes their rules a good learning document but a poor reference document. While DBMM lacks a lot of cross-referencing, it's reasonably good as a reference document. Flames of War is not a good reference document. However, the rules are simple, so may not be required. You may not require to reference them so much during a game. Complex rules are perfectly acceptable, but they need to be rules you play a lot with a number of like-minded gamers. DBMM or DBM are perfectly acceptable if you're meeting each month for a game with other experienced gamers. Presumably those experienced gamers have assisted you in learning the rules. The other option is going down the simple rule path. Skirmish rules are very popular for this very reason. Each side only has a low number of elements, and the rules are often rather simple and easy to play as well as learn. So, let's look at what a wargamer needs to do. First is pick a period, scale and rules. This is driven by two basic factors: other players in your local area and personal interest. Next is create the minimal size force mix possible. No point going overboard. If you have no opponents, you may need to create an opposing force mix. Personally, I would start with known gamers around because you may never get anyone else interested in your two armies that you've decided to put together around a set of rules that maybe no one else will ever be interested in. The next thing to focus on is the bling. As your intention is to attract gamers to your hobby, you need to make the game look good. I'll leave it to other more experienced players to talk about painting figures, but make sure the bases your figures are mounted on look good as well. The main focus, I personally feel, is the playing area. Nice modular terrain and a nice looking base playing area makes a lot of difference. Buildings also add a lot to a playing area. Now, I wish to make it really clear, I'm principally a gamer, so my advice would be considered as totally inadequate to a true modeler. If you are a modeler, there is no need to take any of my advice. You are already well ahead of the position I currently hold. But for new players or gamers, always consider the bling. You will never attract new gamers to your hobby unless you provide some form of honeypot on the playing area, obviously, I mean. I suspect these figures are probably more appropriate for this video. I work in Japan when I first created this video. This place is filled with this kind of stuff, and as a figure gamer, I am really impressed with it. And so we come to an end of my episode 40, my video series on game design theory, in this case trying to identify why people get into figure gaming or gaming hobby. Alle guten Dinge, kommen zu einem Ende.